Howdy dowdy everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Unfictional Soundscape. I am your host, Author Man, and today we have with us one of the larger names in the unfiction field, Kay. You'll know Kay from her powerhouse web series Hi, I'm Mary Mary that took the internet by storm, and from her haunting original short, Entrails, located on her personal YouTube channel just a short virtual car drive away. Kay is currently working on a yet-to-be-fully unveiled project known only as STLDOCE that's coming at you and coming at you at a later point, but for right now, we've got her on the show. Kay, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure to have you on. As soon as I had finished Hi, I'm Mary Mary, I knew it was going to be very enlightening, so I've been very excited for this. It's my pleasure. So, we're going to start our questions off with, of course, your most prominent work as of yet, Hi, I'm Mary Mary. The first question that I want to ask is about one of the more memorable parts of Hi, I'm Mary Mary, at least for me, being the hidden messages in the source code of the blogspot. Did you have any HTML experience prior to Hi, I'm Mary Mary, or was that something you had taught yourself for the series?
I had some moderate HTML experience beforehand. I'm not really an experienced web designer, but I've taken a few really, really basic classes, and the minute I learned how to leave comments in HTML code, I was like, hold on. I can do something with this. This has potential. So, when I realized that because I originally started just messing with and seeing if Tumblr blogs could do it, because originally I thought, oh, I'll use a Tumblr blog, but because I was already running a behind the scenes Tumblr blog, I didn't want things to get confused, so I ended up using Blogspot. But I was testing it out as soon as I learned how to do it, just on my personal blogs and leaving random messages to see if you could find them from random visitors, and so. Yeah, when I found out I could do it in Blogspot, I was psyched because that meant I could leave messages on the overall blog and I could leave some on the individual posts, and I am so glad people found them. That made me psyched.
That's pretty sick. And that's also very artistic of you to find a skill and think, how can I use this in something that I'm making?
Honestly, half of the things in Hi, I'm Mary Mary were me just encountering something and going, this is slick. I like this thing.
That's awesome. That's the mindset that I aspire to have. Well, not that I aspire to have. I do actively try to incorporate that as much as possible. Like I've been trying to look into doing 3D modeling with Blender. Because I want to see,
Nice.
like how can I make something that's just like really fucked up, so that I can scare people. Like I don't know if you've seen the video, but have you seen that one video of like a guy walking in his house and he's like, "Hey Michael, is that you?" And then he looks down a hallway and it's like an 093 SCP looking kind of thing that like looks behind him and he's like, "That's not Michael."
I don't know if I've seen that one, but I've seen stuff in a similar vein.
It's really cool. I'll have to send that to you if I can find it. And then they did like a breakdown video where they show exactly how they did it, and it is so inspiring to see that stuff. I wanna be able to do something like that someday.
Yeah, it's neat to see what people are doing in the CG space. I have a lot of experience with 3D art and modeling and simulation. So on my personal accounts, I follow a lot of those CG artists. And so it's neat to look at what they're doing with compositing and bringing strange looking 3D models into real world stuff, because it doesn't really interact with the horror scene, but every once in a while someone will go, that's fucked up, and we'll share it to the horror scene, and everyone will go, is this real? And then the VFX artist has to go, hey guys, I did this in Houdini. It's, please, I did this for fun. Please, I'm not being haunted.
I love that shit.
And there's a great one where, what is it? Someone will apply incorrect physics to a human model and make them like climb up, but they're ragdolling like crazy and operating off all the wrong joints because you fixed the wrong kind of rig to a human body model. There's a lot of really cool stuff you could do in that scene that could bring some really neat scares to an ARG
project. Yeah, totally. I agree. I want to see if I can get that done. But anyway, back on topic. Now, you know, Hi and Mary Mary, you said, was the first project that you've worked on, like real project that you've worked on. What would you say was the most important lesson that you had learned while putting the series together, production / writing wise?
I think it's the one that I openly spout the most, and that is that planning is really one of the most important things you can do. Because there were so many times I would just rush into things, and realize, oh no, oh god, it's been a couple months and I haven't posted anything new. I didn't plan this part yet. And one of the things I used to do was assume I would figure something out by a certain point and say, oh, I don't have to write this part right now. By the time I get to it, I'll know what to do. And then there were a couple of times I got to those points and went, fuck, I don't know what to do. And so I think having as much laid out as possible, even if it's having really vague parts laid out and then filling in the more specific parts, it's really, really good to know, and being able to plan ahead so that you can coordinate things well ahead of time it's a really important skill. And I think that's the thing that that's what helped me finish the series, because it had been a long time between the third to last video and the final two, and that was mostly because of a combination of graduating college and having to find a job and then doing that job. Things started to get in the way and things were falling behind, and the thing that helped me actually finish the series was I sat down and I physically wrote out every single thing that needed to be done to finish the series, from big steps to little steps. Little things just like record this small segment, record this thing, film this, refilm, edit this. Like, I broke it down into the tiniest amount of tasks, and that was the way I was able to visualize, this is how I need to finish it all. And I think I actually shared it to Twitter a while back, and I would just cross everything off, and it helped me really manage getting it done. Because it can be a tough task, especially because Anagnoresis was almost 40 minutes long. And so I think that planning and laying things out is the best thing that I learned, because that's how I'm choosing to approach my new project. And that's what's kind of keeping me on track with it.
I'll be asking you more questions about that new project a little bit later down the line. But from what you had said, Anagnoresis being... Well, first of all, I wanted to say that is a sound advice. I agree completely that you should try to plan out your series as much as you possibly can, because I find that, as an aside, I find that a lot of projects end up falling through because they do not have the proper planning, and it ends up being a very large detriment to it. So planning out, like everything, like you said, that's very solid advice, and I agree completely. Even if it's vague, even if it's just vague notes.
If you have thought about it a little bit, that's the best. Even just a little bit is better than not having thought about it at all.
I agree completely. I wanted to ask you really quickly about Anagnoresis being 40 minutes, nearly 40 minutes. You know, that's a very long time, and there was a lot of editing and scripting and acting and work that went into just that one video. Would you... I know STLDOCE. By the way, is that how I should be saying it, or is there another word for it?
Honestly, I don't really mind. I've just been using it as a standalone hashtag.
Okay.
Hashtag STLDOCE. Anything like that. It's just a temporary working name until I make a title announcement.
Totally. You know, I know that is going to be a different format than an ARG, but if you were to do a project in the future that's different from that, that is somewhat ARG or just video related in general, would you be open to doing something that is that long again, or was that experience so difficult that you would try to avoid that as much as you could?
I think it would depend on the content of the event, like of said episode. If things were scattered all over the place, like Anagnoresis was, I think the biggest thing that was tough about Anagnoresis is we went so many different places in one video that I couldn't just shoot it all in one go. Some of the stuff in Anagnoresis was shot a year and a half before the rest of it. Some of it needed to be reshot. I actually reshot one particular sequence 3 different times because I hated the first 2. One of them I just made a filming mistake that made it hard to superimpose a character in, and I was like, oh, damn it. So I had to redo it. But I think I'm open to doing something longer, again, if I can plan it out a little bit better so that I know it's going to be long. I don't think I expected Anagnoresis to be that long when I started making it. It was more of a, let's just see how it goes. I didn't expect it to be more than maybe 20 minutes, and then it ended up being double that by the time I'd written the script and everything. But I as I was making it, I was like, well, if I hadn't planned, I definitely would have just split this up into sections. But at this point, fuck it. I'm just going to do the whole thing.
That's fascinating that you hadn't planned it to be 40 minutes originally. That's very interesting. Moving on to the next question. You know, I think for Hi, I'm Mary Mary, a lot of people kind of got it. Even just halfway through or even less than that, they kind of got what the whole allegory was. But, you know, I'm sure there were some people that were a little bit on the fringier side of what could be happening in Hi, I'm Mary Mary. What do you think is the craziest theory that you've seen in regards to that? Like the most out there?
There are a couple of series that I saw that were theories that I saw that were a little bit out there. I think one of them I saw was something along the lines of tying it into the Alan Wake universe, which I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know what would make you think that necessarily. I'm not really familiar with Alan Wake, but I think I came across that one on TV Tropes. And then I think the most insane one that I found was, it had something to do with someone saying, this is clearly about an abortion. What? It just kind of blew my mind. I don't know where the comment even came from. I was just so confused.
That is fascinating. That an abortion, really? Wow. All right.
Yeah, they didn't even really explain. It was just some weirdo in the comments of one theory video. It's like, what are you talking about, man? Are you good? What are you smoking?
You should have responded with the account and what are you talking about? That's interesting that people can kind of, well, you know, art is interpretive, it's subjective, so people will come up with whatever.
And I'm totally down with people having a wide variety of theories, and I encourage that too. I hate when someone says, no, it only means this, and you're not allowed to speculate about anything else, no matter what resonates with you personally. Because I think art can mean so much to so many different people. And so I hope people find something that resonates specifically with them.
I agree completely. Moving on to the next question. Have you upgraded any of your equipment since Hi, I'm Mary Mary, in terms of software or hardware, any new cameras or audio equipment, anything like that?
I have upgraded my microphone, which should be a neat hint for the kind of style I might be going for in the next project.
I wreck it. What kind of microphone is it?
This is a Shure.
Sure. All right. Do you recall the specific model number or?
Off the top of my head, I am not. Wait, hold on. It's on the bottom. Give me a sec.
Take your time.
Oh yeah, SM7B.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask because we're gonna talk a little bit about it more, but I'd like to get as much of the equipment that you use as possible on record, so that people can kind of decide for themselves if they would like to purchase that and use it for their own projects and such.
And the one that I use for all my voiceover for Mary, anything I used was literally this. It was just this little dinky USB mic. It was just this little, and because I wasn't going for any sort of like hardcore podcast or voiceover kind of stuff, I didn't really worry too much about it, and because I was mostly just kind of rasping into it to do all the veiled ladies voiceover, so I really didn't mind how it sounded because I was going to distort it anyways. But it ended up working quite well. And the other thing I did is if I wanted the voiceover to match the environment, I would just use the recorder of whatever I was taking video on, just in a different setting. Maybe I wasn't running, but I'd stand in the same room and just take the audio from a new video clip, just so it matched up. Because I don't know if I'm just hypersensitive to it, but I can always tell when someone's editing in added voiceover into a clip, but they didn't use the same kind of compression as the original video camera might have used. Like, you can tell that they did it off a professional microphone. So I'm like, hey, hold on, that's a little too good.
That's a good skill to have, is being able to hear that, especially with the field that you're in, where you need to make sure, like, does that sound correctly? And I think the microphone is a little bit too. I need to like fix that or something. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I learned audio wise was I struggled with, and I think I still haven't quite mastered it, was making things sound like they were further away, and particularly with veiled lady dialogue when she's supposed to be upstairs or around the corner instead of right on top of you. And that was something I struggled with a lot.
So you had mentioned in an interview with It Came From Queens that you had scrapped an idea for the closet and gone to be a giant mouth after it rejects Mary. Have you figured out how to do that VFX trick since finishing Hi, Mary, Mary? And are there any other scrapped ideas that you wish you could have kept in?
I haven't messed too much with the mouth door concept too much since then, but I think I know how I might approach it if I were going to. I'd probably end up, because originally the original way I was thinking about doing it is with just compositing video in, but I think if I wanted it to really look good, I'd probably end up doing something with like CG 3D models and mess with it that way, but it'd be tough and a lot of motion tracking involved, and motion tracking is the worst. So but regarding any other scrapped stuff, I will eventually put out a video on the side channel about a bit of a scrapped sequence that I didn't end up using, that was like a location in the garden that I went out and I filmed there, and I ended up not liking my footage, so I ended up getting rid of it. It would have fit in, I think, during rain. It's like in a kind of abandoned location that I thought was really cool, but I didn't really like where I clearly put it in because I wanted it to look cool. So I was like, wait a minute, this isn't plot relevant. This is me being like, look at this cool abandoned place I found. This isn't useful. So I scrapped that. I think if there's anything else, I think I just couldn't figure out how to go about and approach anything with the mirror lady popping out of the mirror and grabbing Mary, because that making contact would have caused me a lot of compositing issues. And so I think I just kind of said, no, that will make me pull my hair out. I'm just not going to do it.
True. So you had said once that your mom would sometimes be in the kitchen while you were recording. What is the most annoying inconvenience that you had to work with while making Hi, Mary, Mary?
I think the toughest one was filming while people were asleep. Those were usually ones where I'd have to add extra sound effects and voiceover after the fact when people had either left the house the next day or something. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to mute to make sure that doesn't happen again. It's tough to film when you know you don't want to wake people up. Especially in the dark when you're kind of clattering around. I think I shot some of the stuff with the crawling darkness, walking around the lower level while people were asleep. And a couple of times I shot some very specific stuff with the shadow monster, again, while everyone was asleep upstairs. And I think that's the toughest one because you have to kind of be considerate of everybody. And once everyone else is asleep, you just don't want to bother anyone. Actually, now that I remember, I think my sister would sleep in the room next to mine, and that would be right near where the mirror is for the mirror lady. And so sometimes it'd be like 1 a.m, and I'd decide, I think I'm gonna shoot now, and everyone else is asleep, so I have to very carefully shut doors, work very quietly, not drop my tripod, not make a ton of noise, but also shoot this thing and be careful the light doesn't leak into people's rooms. I just needed to make sure I didn't wake anybody up. And so that was probably the biggest challenge because I didn't want to cause a problem. But it's like the only time I could film because everyone else was moving about until they were asleep.
Criminy. That does sound like a lot to work with at once. Having to micromanage all of those things to make sure that you don't wake somebody up. Do you think
a lot of sneaking around?
A lot of sneaking around, and that kind of does work in the favor for Hi Mary Mary anyway, because she is kind of sometimes she's like trying to sneak around. Would you try to what do you think you would do to try to avoid that in the future if you could avoid it?
Well, for one, I don't live with my parents anymore, so I would be not having to worry about waking up my parents. I'd be in a different place, so I think with a lot more kind of acceptance of, hey, I'm going to be clattering around a bit. Do you mind chilling in this one room? Or, and so I think I don't have to worry about it so much, but, I think a couple of times now I was able to specifically say, hey, there's a cool movie playing. Do you guys want to go watch that? And I will film. I did that a couple times when I knew I needed to make sound. I ejected my parents and my sister from the house for a while, and I had a friend over to, I think specifically for filming Gone. That one, you can't not make noise filming Gone. Because that's the one where the veiled lady beats the shit out of Mary.
Oh yes.
So
I recall.
It's like that is not silent.
Yes.
So I just sort of said, okay, you guys leave and give me several hours, and me and my friend will film this thing. And I think that's what I would just schedule things more ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to film this day, so I don't have to film while everybody's asleep.
I see. Solid advice. And the final question that I have for Hi Mary Mary to kind of round it out. You had said in your post-series Q&A that you bought quite a few plugins during the production. What plugins did you buy for Hi Mary Mary, and would you recommend them for other folks looking to get their start with projects and Unfiction and such?
I would recommend, I personally, if I'm going to recommend any of the plugins that I got, I would recommend Twitch, because that makes some really easily customizable glitch stuff, but I also definitely don't think anyone needs to rely on them.
Okay.
I think I wouldn't say you must own these things, because again, not everyone has access to After Effects in the first place. But I used Twitch, and eventually, because I also do a lot of work with motion graphics in my daily life, so I also have Trapcode because I use it in other things as well. And Trapcode is what helped me with the crawling darkness in an Agnoresis. But Trapcode particular specifically, not the entire suite. But again, I don't think I don't think people should feel pressured automatically to go for expensive plugins, but they are definitely cool if you want to play with them. Because I think sometimes having a limited amount of things to work with can make some of the greatest creativity, because people are like, how do I work within these limits and still do something insane?
Yes.
And that makes stuff like Alan Tutorial, where it's insane.
I agree completely. As a personal aside, this year I was doing a creative project a week on my personal YouTube channel.
Nice.
And that was, I just had to make like one video per week, and I would keep like, it wasn't so much of a thing of trying to make quality content as much as it just was quantity and getting my creative process and all of that jazz.
A lot of generative stuff, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Like, just to refine your skills.
Yes, absolutely. It was a lot of testing. I even started this podcast specifically because of, well, not because of that, but it was a product of that. Was something that I knew I enjoyed doing research, and I knew I enjoyed interviewing people. So why don't I just start, and I like Unfiction, why don't I just start a podcast? It was a lot of just like, okay, what can I make this week to get it sent out?
Are you familiar with the concept of everydays?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
There's a lot of there's this, I've encountered this term, everydays, of people literally making a piece of 3D art every single day on top of their other work as a way to refine their skills. And if you're familiar with, have you heard of Beeple?
I have not, no.
Beeple is a pretty well-known 3D artist, and I think he was someone who got a lot of traction. He's been doing everydays for like 13 years, I think. But I know I have a lot of friends that are 3D artists, and a lot of people have been able to really improve their skills by doing something every day. And I think that's kind of similar in the vein of what you were doing, making a project every week, because it let you just kind of, you didn't have to work on making it perfect. You just had to make something, and that just gets your creativity flowing.
Yes. In fact, I would really recommend, if any of the people in the audience are feeling like they have like a blockage of some sort, or they don't know where to start with their art, or they don't feel particularly artistic, I think doing either an everydays or doing project a week helps a lot. It is really something that my buddy Aiden says all the time, is limitation breeds creativity, which is exactly what you had said earlier, and I agree 110%. If you limit yourself with the things that you have, with the tools that you have, and you work within that small field, you can make some of the best stuff you have ever created.
Definitely.
The person that had inspired me to do the creative project a week personally was Jonathan Colton. I don't know if Yeah. He did for the beginning of his career, he did a song a week for like a whole year. It was just one song per week, and he would just get it out, and he would put it on his podcast, and then that's where he found his fame. And some of the songs are amazing, and some of the songs are not. But that is the point, is that so it's going to be it's a very hit or miss process, and I think you should keep that in mind. This last
and
thing.
Not everyone's going to be perfect.
Totally. And you shouldn't expect to be perfect with a daily or weekly sort of creative thing, because it's just you're not trying to be Picasso here. Well, okay, maybe Picasso's bad. Like you're not trying to be Van Gogh here or Beethoven. You're just trying to make something so that you can get your creative juices flowing, and then later down the line you can be Beethoven.
Yeah.
when you're confident in your abilities and you know how to use your mind as the tool it should be used as.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's fantastic advice. Moving on from Hi, I'm Mary Mary, we're going to get into STLDOCE. The first question is that you had said once that your biggest inspiration for Hi, I'm Mary Mary was PT getting canceled.
Yeah, spite.
Spite, out of spite, absolutely. Would you like to divulge what your biggest inspiration, if there is any, for STLDOCE?
Well, I'll say this, because I don't want to get too spoilery, but initially the idea for STLDOCE came from just some brainworm thing I typed in my notes app, and then things started suddenly forming in the middle of a viewing of The Lighthouse. Somehow I sometimes think I get my best ideas while watching other movies and other things, because suddenly I might see the smallest thing and things start knitting together in my head, and I spent the whole time after the movie suddenly stitching and writing down these things. I was like, oh wait, hold on, this brainworm thing I wrote in my notes app, I have ideas now. And it just kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, wait, this is cool, I like this. And it was, yeah, in the middle of watching The Lighthouse. I went to see it in theaters back in November 2019. Was that November, October? I don't remember. Sometime in late 2019.
I see. What did you think of the movie, by the way?
I liked it. I like films that make me confused.
Yeah.
But then, because that means I get to think about it for a while. Like, if I don't get it right away, it's fun to think about. And I loved the aesthetic of the film. I loved the ideas, the surrealism, the strangeness.
Mm-hmm.
I like Robert Eggers' films.
I agree. Would you like to divulge the format in which STLDOCE will be taking place in? Are we looking at YouTube or a website, or are there sleeper accounts stashed around the internet that we should be looking out for, etc.?
Yeah, I think I'm cool talking about that. It's definitely going to be on YouTube.
Cool.
It'll be in a much more episodic format, so it'll be very different from the like in-game web series kind of thing, but there is definitely a found footage kind of element to it. It may not be footage, but it will be found things. And so that's kind of the hints that I'm going off right now with it.
That's pretty epic. I like that a lot already. Just that little blurb, that's awesome. That's got me very excited for it. I mean, I was already excited for it, but that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah, I've been to add to the hint, I've been doing a lot of hunting around the internet, around certain kind of very old stores, around just like digging through places and finding found things.
Interesting. All right. I wreck it. So final question about the series. Hi, Mary Mary had an emphasis on audience participation specifically towards the end, very prominently towards the end. Would you like to continue that over into the new series? And if so, would you have more or would you have less? Would you not have any audience participation?
I think I'm going to go with not really so much audience participation this time, because I think the found element of it means things are taking place after the fact. And so I am planning on hoping to play around in the ARG scene again with a different project, but that's a long time from now. I want to do this one first. I want to slow down. Gotcha. But I think part of what I liked so much about using audience participation in Hi, I'm Mary Mary is it helped kind of emphasize the themes, because of one of the things I emphasized heavily in Hi, I'm Mary Mary was the aspect of coping mechanisms, the way we interact with each other, the way we can unknowingly enable somebody, and the way that, so like the whole live stream sequence was kind of this, are we gonna enable Mary going back to the garden, or are we gonna push her to do something that is not her relying on her same coping mechanism that is keeping her stuck here? And so I think I was able to kind of use the audience to drive that point home. And so I remember seeing people after the fact in Tumblr posts and on Discord saying, wait a second, we're enabling her. And I was like, yes, thank you.
Real shit.
And I think in the case of STLDOCE, I don't think it would have as much of an effect. So I'm going with probably not.
Gotcha. That's totally fair. One last thing. You had mentioned that it's like after the fact, and that reminds me a lot of, Have you been keeping up with something called Paranormal Paranoids?
I followed it. I gotta like big burst. Gotta find it all. I need to watch it. I followed it to remind myself to watch it, but I've been hearing really good things.
It is so fucking good, dude. The not the latest video on the channel, but the video before the latest video is it is really, oh my god. I don't want to talk about it too much, but that is one of the most impactful moments I have seen in an Unfiction piece thus far. And
that seriously builds my hype.
Dude, it's even worse. It's even worse because there is something that is happening in the video that you will not notice the first time around until somebody points it out to you in the comment section or in like the Twitter post, and it's gonna make you shit your pants.
Okay, sick. I'm interested now.
I I became like instantly paranoid after I saw that. I was like looking around my like apartment, like making sure like am I like alone right now? There are not many pieces of media that can elicit that reaction from me. But this
how much is currently on there? Like how long would it take me to get through it?
Oh, it's not very long at all. It would take you
sick.
I would say that to get through like everything, it would probably take you no more than 3 hours, I don't think. I think you could get through like the whole thing, Twitter posts and all, in less than 3 hours.
Awesome. That's good to know. Because I mean, I'm one of those people that's like, people tell me, oh, start this big 8-season TV show, and I just look at how much it is. I'm like, oh god, I can't get through it. But yeah. I'm glad to know that I can probably get through this pretty quickly. Because I've been wanting to watch it, and I'm like, I'm seeing it progressing. I'm like, slow down.
The videos aren't very long, and there aren't a whole lot of Twitter posts. If you're going to start it, I recommend that you start with the with the Twitter, just searching, and then until they start like mentioning videos, that's when you like switch over to the YouTube channel. You can go back and forth, but I would recommend just like watching everything on the YouTube channel in one go, completely.
Sick.
I'm gonna have to do an episode on that sometime soon. But anyway, moving on. This is a music and sound podcast, so I would be remiss to not specifically talk about the music and sound. Your singing technique is fantastic.
Thank you.
Have you ever had any lessons?
Yes, I took voice lessons for 7 years. I wanted to do musical theater and vocal performance in high school, but I largely divulged from that and ended up doing media related stuff.
Oh my god. That is the exact same thing that happened to me. In high school, I was all about musicals, and then as soon as I hit college, I was like, maybe not so much anymore. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah. Like, I went through the audition process, too. Like, I auditioned for schools, but I can't dance for shit, so.
Yeah, that was also my thing, is that I didn't really know how to dance much. You had gone and auditioned at colleges, but did you immediately like switch to media arts?
It's kind of like a last minute thing. Like I got into a program at the last minute. I was like, okay, you know what? We're doing this. Very, very convenient the way that worked out.
Totally. Have you ever had any experience with any other instruments? I had noticed that you had a keyboard in Hi, I'm Mary Mary. Have you, do you practice with that, or do you?
Long time ago, but it's more like that thing's more like a dinosaur.
I see.
Definitely lost those skills.
I gotcha. Was it? Have you only ever done keyboard related things, or were there any other instruments that you had in your life?
I do. I'm halfway decent with the ukulele, but I'm really not super good at many other instruments. Really, just vocal stuff. But there will be a bit of a recurrence of some of that in STLDOCE, so that's cool. Excited for that. That's pretty sick.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that. Have you ever thought about making original music or even doing cover music?
I've definitely thought about it. I think it's more of just how does one start doing that?
So when you had created Hi, I'm Mary Mary, was it a conscious thought in your mind to have a focus on music and sound design, or did it just turn out that way?
I think it just kind of happened that way. I think I wanted to do more originally when I wasn't fully concepted out in the process. I think I hadn't really thought it through, and it kind of fell a bit behind after the fact, and I realized I don't really need to do this, but I did want to hold on to the kind of casual singing of the Oingo Boingo song in the last episode, because that song I had found really early on in the series and went, hold up, I can use this song, but I don't want to do it a little too hard. I just want to casually sing in the background because it has a lot of useful meaning for the series.
Totally. So we're going to do some sound workshopping, and then after that we're going to take a break. The first sound that I would like to talk with you about, sound that you had made for the series specifically, is the night ambiance. And this is from the Crawling Darkness episode. So, a couple things just from listening to it. The most prominent thing that I can hear in that is some synth work going on. I recall at one point you had said that to make the night ambiance for the series, you just kind of got a synth and just like fucked around with it. Was it FL Studio?
Oh no, it was here's my like dirty little secret about a lot of the sound in Hi, Mary Mary. It was all just taking GarageBand synths and playing with all the lowest notes. And just kind of seeing what happens and mishmashing them all together.
What about that odd flapping sound that's going on towards the beginning and the end? What did you do to recreate that?
That was actually all in the synth. Since it moved faster in the higher pitches, I don't think it's usually as noticeable, but when I brought it down to the very lowest notes, it was all already in there, and I went, oh, this is cool.
Ooh,
sticking with that. So it was kind of a happy accident. I said, oh, I'm just gonna hold this key for 2 minutes so I have this track to fall back on when I need it.
Did you create like little blurbs of screwing around with these synths, or did you do very long screw around sessions that you would then cut up and put into specific parts?
I had at least 4 different kind of screw around sessions that were maybe like 10 minutes long each, with me just pressing buttons, and then I just would save them out as ambient sounds, and then whenever it came time to do the sound design for the series, I would just kind of plop them in there and be like, oh, this works, I like this. It was good to have a library to fall back on.
Totally. I think that's great advice to give to people, is that have, I mean, if you're going to do something similar to what you have done, I think having a library to fall back on would be a solid call. The next sound that I would like to ask you about and talk about is one that I had featured somewhat prominently in the Hi, I'm Mary Mary episode. Go check that out if you haven't already. It is this leitmotif for the Veiled Lady. I think it's specifically for the Veiled Lady. I couldn't tell if it had played at other points. So that little melody right there that you can kind of hear in the background behind the clicking and the such. When you were making that, did you specifically decide, I want this melody to be playing, or was that just some more screw around?
It was absolutely just chaos buttons.
Gotcha, chaos buttons?
Yep. Just slamming things around and hoping for the best. So it wasn't super intentional, but I think it just kind of stuck around.
So it wasn't like inspired like that, because that is such a very specific melody to my ear. It wasn't like you weren't thinking, oh, I can make like a sound like this. Because it sounds like, to me, it sounds kind of like kind of a nursery rhyme, like a very simple melody, and that had struck me. That wasn't inspired by anything in particular?
No, I just was kind of pressing things and going, this is good. I will keep this. It's interesting that you say nursery rhyme, though, considering that multiple people have made the Mary Mary quite contrary connection. So maybe that subconsciously has got to people.
Ooh, that's interesting. And that's very interesting indeed. The last thing that I want to ask you about, and then we'll go on a quick break, is one of my favorite trivia pieces for Hi, Mary Mary is that one of the, I think it's the first sound that we ever heard for the Crawling Darkness was a toilet that you had heard in your dorm that sounded ungodly. When you first heard that, like, you had talked about earlier about HTML, like, oh, how can I use this? Was that also your thought for the toilet? You just thought, how can I use this to do some freaky shit?
I think it was just, why does my toilet sound evil? Because it was just like, it was a college dorm room toilet, but I didn't get why it was so powerful. I was like, this is insane. This feels like I'm on a boat. It feels like I'm on an airplane. And this toilet is just like this monster. Why does it sound so intense for a toilet? I'm literally in a dorm room. So I just snagged a sample of it and said, I'm gonna make this into something because my toilet is haunted.
Did you have that idea before you had started Hi, Mary Mary, or was it after?
I think it was after I started. But I had kind of snipped the sound effect before because I was like, look at how insane my toilet is. Because the regular dorm bathrooms didn't sound like that, but the one that was, the particular dorm I was in had its own toilet. And so for whatever, the regular old dorm bathrooms were, your typical flush, but this toilet was fucking crazy. And so I was like, you know what, I will do something with this, but here's a sound. Everyone listen to the way my toilet sounds. It's just one of those batshit coincidences in life.
That's awesome. Alrighty, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. Alrighty, everybody. We're back. We're back in action. So, moving on from specifically music and sound design, I just want to ask you some questions about general Unfiction and your experience with it. You've been a creator in the field for nearly half a decade now. What is your experience? Yeah, I know. It's crazy to say it like that, isn't it? What has your experience with the community been like, including with the creators?
It's been pretty wild because I started kind of interacting with Unfiction stuff as a 14, 15-year-old, and I'm 24 now, so I spent a good while as a fan first, just kind of casually interacting. I think I made my way in from the Slenderverse and then expanded from there. So I've been a part of the community for quite a while, and I've always loved the kind of esoteric nature of it, in that it's hard to explain to other people. I'm like, oh, the ARG community, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, oh, we pretend these things are real and play games with them. And it's very hard to explain, and that's honestly one of the things I like about it. But because the amount of creativity there is here is so neat, and it seems like every day someone's coming up with something new, and you've got new series and all kinds of stuff. And I think interacting with other creators has been really cool as well, because everyone's got a unique perspective to share, and I've had really neat conversations with other creators, just about all sorts of things, whether it's the state of the community or the just like the general creativity and ideas people are bringing in. I've definitely noticed the ARG community has been getting a little bit more flack lately of people saying ARGs are bad because they toy with reality and that's not safe. The biggest thing for me is so many of these ARGs are, I mean, I literally fell for something the other day on Reddit. And I'm still embarrassed. I was like, oh, damn, I fucking fell for an ARG. I was like, oh, come on. But I don't think they can really cause that much harm necessarily. I think, yeah, there are cases where things have been more problematic, but I think so many of these ARGs are relying on notably very outrageous concepts that it always surprises me when someone shows up in my comments like, so this wasn't real? And I'm like, did you see that part where I forgot to rotoscope a hand? Like, I mean, have you seen my mistakes? Maybe I'm just hyper aware of them, but I usually defer to that person is probably 10 years old.
Yes. I'm of the same mind where if it is that easy for somebody to be confused about the reality in which an unfiction piece is real or not real, is already predisposed to believing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like if that person is that easy to not trick but to get into thinking that something like that is real, probably shouldn't be on the internet.
And I mean, I think there are things that can be done to help protect against the occasional, maybe a person
Totally.
who's having trouble distinguishing fantasy from reality. But I do think sometimes the danger of ARGs gets a bit overblown because
Totally.
the community as a whole kind of keeps an eye out for people who are maybe having trouble distinguishing fantasy and reality and are pretty quick to rein in someone who's like posting in our Slender Man thinking, is this thing real? And people will be like, it's a thing made up.
Totally.
And I think the community largely does a decent job at reminding people this is all a game. I think the reason why I was worried and made a point to make a behind the scenes blog was because, and I know I've said this in a couple of different interviews, was because of the similar occurrence of the Marina Joyce situation happening around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And also because I didn't want someone getting a little too excited and like finding my location. Oh man, there's been a couple of times where I've been like, ugh, not because someone necessarily found me, but because I realized I knew I've seen a fan before on my campus. So I was like, oh fuck, I can't ever run into you. That happened to me one time.
Really?
Yeah.
So did they never approached you, or they never figured it out?
I think I am luckily not recognizable enough unless it's like very obviously Mary related things. But I literally, I was just, this person made a comment on the Tumblr blog and I was like, oh cool, I'm gonna look at your page. Oh no, you go to my school. You're in my department. Fuck.
Holy shit, it was that specific? Like,
yeah, it wasn't the like immediate department, but it was the same building. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Bruh, that's scary. Especially for you, I'm sure. You specifically try to maintain anonymity, and for that to be so, oof, that's a little scary.
I wasn't too worried eventually because I think they just generally stopped using their Tumblr over time. But it spooked me a little bit at the start. I was like, oh no. I've gotta keep an eye out for this person. I saw them multiple times on campus from a distance. So I was like, I have a small breach. And every once in a while, because I have several friends from my college who don't know that I make this series, every once in a while I'll like check on their YouTube channel and I'll see that they've subscribed to like Nightmare Expo, and I'll feel like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
When are the streams gonna cross? One day someone's gonna watch a video and go, hey, hold on, isn't that my classmate? And so that's something that I do every once in a while. I have to keep an eye on.
Do you have any like shock tactics in plan to keep that from happening?
I think it really depends on who it is that finds it.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's someone that I'm vaguely friendly with, I can be like, oh yeah, I do this YouTube thing. But if it's someone that maybe I don't want to know about it, I'll be like, that's not me. I don't know who that is. I guess I have a clone. Thanks for letting me know. The worst thing they'll give me is something like, "Hey, I've been to your house."
Oh, jeez.
But I don't think I have to worry about that too much.
Gotcha. I wanted to move back a little bit because you had mentioned the esotericism of Unfiction and ARGs being of interest to you. Are you not ever frustrated with how esoteric it can be sometimes? In terms of explaining it to people.
I do get frustrated. I think my best memory of something similar is I once tried to get some of my friends from like theater club to watch Everyman Hybrid, and it did not go very well because it is so hard to explain it to someone who is not aware of what it is, especially because it was simultaneous with like Slender coming out, the game. I had to be like, yeah, it's the guy in the game. and here's these two musical theater girls like, I am not entertained.
Oh my god. I'm sure everybody in the audience can relate to that, and trying to, if they're an Unfiction fan, that is, trying to relate that something that you like that to somebody. Because
it's such a niche genre.
Totally. Very niche. Very, 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 very niche. Which is one of the reasons why I'm happy that I focused on this in the podcast, because nobody else is going to be talking about it. Nobody's going to talk about the music and sound design in Unfiction.
Yeah.
Or really, there aren't too many podcasts that specifically like, there will be some, I'd done some research before I started it just to make sure. There was one Unfiction specific podcast that I had looked into, and I guess Pumpkin Emoji can be Unfiction specific, but other than that, there were just a lot of different podcasts that like kind of brushed shoulders with it, and would then move on to whatever else they were talking about. It is very hard to market it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, very, very hard to explain. Which is interesting because there are also a lot of different things that I don't think people realize are Unfiction.
Yeah.
Like a lot of marketing campaigns, right? Like, the most prominent example I can think of is like Cloverfield. That's
usually how I go about introducing what it is to someone, because usually I can say, oh, do you remember when this movie did this thing, and there were all these cool tie-in things? And even if it's not necessarily true to form as an ARG example, I can say it's similar in vein to that. Like, the best thing I can think of that maybe it wasn't a full-blown ARG, but when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, there was like a whole tie-in website, and you had to listen to some audio recording and solve the puzzle to get into the website and figure out the password. 'Cause like that kind of stuff I love when that kind of stuff happens, but it's usually what I use to explain, hey, remember that cool thing we did and how there's a password and cool stuff like that? Well, here's something that people are making for fun that's similar in that vein.
Yeah. I think that's a very good way to explain it. I usually use Blair Witch as an example, because everybody that I explain it to is usually, well, most if not all of them are old enough or are older and understand like what the world was like when that first came out, and like the news stuff and the websites and all of the hype that was like, hey, this could be real, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think my first this could be real was when someone released a tie-in website to that book that I remember I bought at a book fair in like elementary school, Skeleton Creek. Someone released a tie-in website, Skeleton Creek is real, and was this person supposedly reporting in that these are true events, and I think this stuff actually, maybe the book didn't, but I think the setting is real. And eventually it was revealed to be all a part of the promotion, but like that stuff fucks. It's always fun. And I mean, I think the reason I got a Facebook was so I could interact with that page.
Really?
I think
That's
honestly, ARGs are why I use social media. Because I got a Facebook so I could interact with the Skeleton Creek investigations page, and I got a Tumblr so I could interact with the Slenderverse.
That's very interesting. That's interesting that it really permeated your life that much, where you decided, like, I need to create these things to interact. I need to create these accounts so that I can interact with these unfiction projects that I'm really interested in.
It was such a fun time, and I think finding those first projects it's something else when you're like, what is this thing?
Totally, I agree.
Like my first viewings of Marble Hornets, I didn't know what was going on. I don't know if it was real. I figured out pretty quickly. I was like, oh, this is an internet boogeyman. But at first I was like,
yeah.
what is going on?
Yes.
What is this? And I ended up staying up. Or I'd wake up really, really early before anyone else woke up so I could binge watch Marble Hornets.
Were you not convinced specifically by Lonely Girl 15?
I was a bit of a latecomer to Lonely Girl 15. I started watching around the time of LG15 The Resistance, their little sequel series. So I wish I had seen it when it happened live, but I came onto it late. But I was really, really excited by it. And I could see how people were really, would have been really surprised by it. I came across a TikTok a while back that was trying to condemn ARGs by saying that Lonely Girl 15 made everyone really scared. But I really wasn't there to know how it went for people. And I do get that when there is an element of concern, maybe people can feel a little bit slighted when they find out it isn't real.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, man. I've always had an issue with the predisposition to be upset with something to find out that it's not real. Because it doesn't, I don't think it should be so much being upset as it should be silent disgruntlement.
I just like rolled my eyes the other day when I found out, oh my god, I got punked.
Well, yes, exactly, right? You didn't get upset, or you didn't get like, oh man, what the fuck?
Because I think for me, if I found out, I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know. If I found out something like Lonely Girl 15 was a game, I'd be like, even better. Now I don't have to be stressed for this random girl online.
True. Absolutely. I've run into a project recently. Well, what I suspect is a project that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about just yet because of a video coming out about it. But I am like 99% sure that it's not like an actual thing that's been happening, and just an unfiction piece that somebody had created. And I know the people who are watching it or have been following it are probably going to be very upset when they find out, because they are the type of people to follow lolcows. They're the type to follow the Christian or the DSP or etc. They're not usual
kinds of situations.
Yeah, it's one of those kinds of situations. It is almost assuredly an unfiction piece, and I know those fucking people are going to be upset.
That sounds like it might explode a little bit.
Yeah, but I don't think that's right for you to be upset about it. Because first of all right, this isn't something that affects your life. Number two, you should be glad that this isn't real.
I feel similarly. Like I would feel relieved.
Yeah, totally. Because like if this is real, then there is some seriously like fucked up stuff going on here with this person and their life. And you should not be cheering that on, nor should you be like, with the ending, yeah, you should be happy that they like found themselves or whatever, but like, is it real? Like, I don't think it's okay for you to be like banging your chair and getting upset. Just let it just, all right, it was a piece of fiction. You got tricked. You should be happy that you got tricked. That's like masterwork that you, a person who was intently watching this, was totally you got hoodwinked into thinking that this was like an actual thing that was happening to somebody.
And I think that part of what can be what I think is a little bit safer about experiencing an ARG rather than having it happen directly to you is it's not happening directly to you, so you have a degree of separation. Like it's not like your friend is pranking you into thinking you're being robbed and you feel like you're going to legitimately die. You are secondhand witness to something.
Yes. And you can sometimes have the luxury of having some kind of effect on the story, but you should all be interacting with that. Your interaction with it, whether it's real or not real, would probably be the same anyway. Like, you shouldn't be trying to like get directly involved. Advice is like all you really should be doing in any of these kinds of internet-based situations, regardless of real or unreal. I mean, the only difference is that you'd be calling the cops.
Yeah.
which I don't think, I don't know. I don't think you would want to do that anyway.
And I definitely think there's a lot of nuance to the situation.
Totally.
With it when it comes to each individual thing, but I think I still get surprised when someone seems surprised it was real when there are obvious supernatural elements. It's like very clearly digitally artifacted supernatural elements. I'm like, what? And maybe I'm just too close to the project, but I think, and again, I also have been in the community for a long time that I can usually be like, oh, this thing isn't real necessarily. So every once in a while I get punked over and I'm like, ah, damn.
All right, well, that one time that you got punked, that didn't have any supernatural stuff in it. That was like, wait, are things being taken down? Like, is this something that I should be watching out for? And
yeah.
Well,
I do think sometimes manipulating, like in a case like that, manipulating larger concern could be a little bit risky. I didn't mind it too much, but I think in a case like using a pre-existing Google form and making it seem like there was an immediate issue that creators needed to take advantage of, I think it was like, oh, don't mess with people's fears so that they do things. But at the same time, like it was a cool idea. So there's definitely a fine line.
Totally. I agree with that. Oh god, we could talk hours for that. Like about like the fine line about where you should stop and start. But I think we've talked a lot about this, and I have more questions.
Okay.
So tell you what, we'll talk about that some more down the line in time. But let's getting back to some of the questions. What would you say is your favorite Unfiction piece if you had to choose? And if you can't choose one, picking a few is fine.
Oh my gosh. I think one of my favorite Unfiction pieces has to be, gotta go with an OG is probably Marble Hornets just because of the cultural impact.
Based.
And the way in which it changed the game. I mean, people were talking about how, I think the other day, Troy released some kind of plushie, and all of a sudden, the fandom arose out of nowhere. And it was a huge fandom with like people from all over the place. Like, it got the traditional, like, classic Tumblr fandom treatment, and there were other people that were there from the Something Awful forums, people from all over the place, and it hit virality. And virality is always tough because it's such a fleeting game of this thing will go viral and then the energy will die down, as is the nature of most viral things. But it it really, I think, put a real stamp on the genre as a whole of, hey, this thing, like, there's a good chance that someone might recognize Marble Hornets even if they don't really know what Unfiction is.
Yes. I agree. Well, it's such an iconic series, and it's associated with something that is a very prominent footnote in internet history, being, Slender Man. I mean, criminy Jiminy, that guy was around for, God, maybe my perception is somewhat warped, being around during that time and being very engrossed during that time with the different series and the Slenderverse that was out. But I feel like Slender Man was really, really popular, like, everywhere from like 2009 to like 2000 and I don't know, 13 maybe.
I'd say that was definitely like the biggest moment. And I think too, Slender Man hit that same virality of the game came out and everyone was playing it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like my friends who were in theater and had nothing to do with the Slenderverse be like, have you played Slender? It's so scary, right? and so it hit its viral kind of, it went super, super viral. And I think there was a combination of the natural progression of internet virality and a couple other events really made it, I think, it came back to the community after that.
I agree.
And I do always love its nature as an open source character.
Yes, I like that too. I think that's...
You don't have a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, well, even, it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that, like, with, it wasn't recent, but it was fairly recent with, like, Siren Head, where it wasn't really... I mean, it's kind of an open source character, but not really.
Yeah, because it's very much Trevor's monster.
Yes, you automatically think like, oh, okay, so like Siren Head, you think Trevor Henderson.
Yeah,
and I mean, some people aren't necessarily connected to Trevor Henderson, and they just appreciate Siren Head, but it's not nearly as open source as Slender Man, like you had mentioned, because like with Slender Man, Victor Surge kind of made it. Well, yeah, he did, but not really. Like, he came up with like the basic shape for it and some of the lore behind it, but the rest of the lore and everything that's really associated with Slender Man nowadays, or even just the operator, is like made by the people who made series around it. Yeah. And it evolved like into that mythos. That would be a really interesting episode, actually. I think
just
I should
chronologue the entire mythos and how it grew and changed. And
it's very interesting. I think open source, I hadn't thought of that word before, but open source is a perfect way to put it for Slender Man. Are there any other Unfiction pieces that particularly strike your fancy?
Let me think. I mean, I was very impressed by this house's people in it, and the fact that you could watch the like 11-minute video and then, surprise, there's hours of extra content. Yeah. I love that. I love when that happens, when you find out there's so much more stuff here. This this is way bigger than I thought it would be. That's the coolest thing ever, and I still don't know what the fuck's going on. Yeah, neither do I, man. I love those big mysteries like that. That one stuck with me a lot of, this is so cool. Yeah, I agree. That stuck with me as well. Moving on to the opposite end of that, if you're willing to divulge, what would you say is your least favorite and most disappointing Unfiction piece? There's a difference between the two. I don't know if I have necessarily least favorites, because I'm trying to like even think, because normally I think I'm scanning my brain for Unfiction projects I came across. Yeah, the mental Rolodex, gotcha. Yeah, literally. I don't know if I have a least favorite, because they all kind of scratch that itch for me of like, what the fuck is going on. But I definitely wouldn't pick a least favorite so much. I think I get sad when things can't reach their ending for, like, I am so sad that I Am Sophie didn't get to reach an ending.
No, it came back, didn't you
Oh,
hear?
it came back?
Yeah, it came back.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, it came back. That was okay, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to talk about that for a second. I don't think I like that very much, that they lied about that.
Wait, it was a lie?
Yeah, it was a lie, because he went on, like, his social, the fellow who was behind it, the director behind it, was like, yeah, I ended I Am Sophie. Sorry, guys. And then Nick releases a video, like an hour and 40-minute video, or something to that effect. And then it comes back, like, the next day.
Oh.
That, I don't think I appreciate that very much. I think that's kind of rude.
I think going out of game to say, like, once you go out of game, it's like, I trust the out of game stuff a bit more.
Yes.
That's why, like, I would never say anything in game through the behind the scenes Tumblr.
Totally.
I'm a little surprised. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'd only, well, it wasn't recently. I think it was like a month or so ago. That came back, so worry not. Are there any other series that you can think of that, like, ended prematurely that kind of made you a little sad?
I'm really not sure I can recall.
The West Records is definitely one for me. I know he keeps saying that he's going to bring it back.
I always wanted to see the ending of Emma Anderson. Like, I liked that one, and I wanted to see how it ended.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Moving on, then. It is often in this field that we run into accounts pretending to be accounts associated with certain projects. Yes, and you've run into this very recently with people on TikTok re-uploading content from Hi, I'm Mary Mary. What is your leading theory as to why people do this kind of thing?
Honestly, my biggest theory is that it's not even necessarily openly malicious, and more just, I'm excited about this thing. And it's one thing if they literally ripped from my channel and started uploading on YouTube, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it's I can get TikTok clout from this, so I'm gonna take it and re-upload it there. I was definitely a little disappointed to see that someone was uploading my videos onto TikTok without running it by me even a little bit. I don't want the series on TikTok, really. I'm willing to be cool with people finding it and making fan stuff and talking about it on TikTok, but I never really wanted to transition it over there at all, just because TikTok is a chaos app.
Totally.
But I think it's either a combination of being really excited about the series and wanting to play a part in it somehow, or just wanting to kind of grab some of the clout associated. I'm not too worried about that TikTok re-uploader because they're not gaining any traction. And also because I let people know pretty regularly, hey, this isn't me. And I've actually seen some people comment on their videos, this isn't Kay, this is a re-uploader.
Yeah.
And they haven't kept it going. They stopped doing it in like 2020.
I think it's interesting that people do that. I've never understood why. I think I understand why people do game jacking stuff, because they want to be a part of something that they really appreciate and they want to be a part of the story. But it's like, all right, man.
Like, it's one thing to traditionally game jack, and it's another thing to just completely rip videos.
Yeah. They are two different things, you're right.
Like, I remember I've seen comments on Mary videos that are akin to that one Letterboxd thing on, that one Letterboxd comment on the thing that's like, this happened to my buddy Eric. I've seen people comment, yeah, this has happened to me too. Here's what you want to do. Anyone else, feel free to ask me questions about it. And I'll be like, I don't think this has happened to you in exactly this vein. And there'll be people who are like, yes, I've seen those shadow people too. Or like, oh my god, girl, same. I'll be like, who? And then someone will be like, Mary, it is me. You know me. I can rescue you. DM me. I'll be like, no one pays these people any mind usually. They're just randos in the YouTube comment section, but it's always amusing to see. I think there was every once in a while someone would reply to the Twitter account attempting to game jack, but I think most people that were following the Twitter were pretty they were pretty tuned into how game jackers worked and didn't really care or didn't pay them any mind. There was one game jacker that did cause some problems, and I had to clarify, hey, that's not a canon thing. It was someone on the someone in the Blogspot comments was claiming to be like a character and was sending people on wild goose chases. And I had to be like, yeah, I don't know who that is. And I felt bad because everyone was like, oh man, that person wasn't. So we did all this searching and they were lying. And I was like, I'm so sorry, guys. That person isn't me.
Suck, yeah.
Because they had like codes and stuff set up. But
wow.
Yeah, that wasn't
so they
me.
were kind of in depth.
And so that one person, I had to like make an announcement. I don't know who that is. There was someone on Tumblr that also used a Mary name, and I don't know whether it was supposed to be a game jacker or someone starting their own series using similar names, and people had to ask, is this Tumblr account associated? It's someone looking for a Mary. Is this in game? And I was like, I don't know who that is. No idea. I don't think they're related. And I don't know if that person was intentionally game jacking or if they were just making their own series and coincidences caused them to get associated with mine. But every once in a while I do have to clarify, hey, this thing is not me.
Moving on from general unfiction stuff, I just want to ask you some media questions, just general, because you've talked extensively about your tastes, and I want to delve a little bit more into that. You had asked your followers on Twitter once what the horror genre meant to them and what keeps them coming back. And you had said in your post-series Q&A that it was cosmic horror for you. Please elaborate on that, and what about it really gets you randy and excited?
I think for me, it's that same feeling of what is going on. I don't get this right away. I'm challenged by it. That I like things that make me think, and the whole unknowable nature of cosmic horror just kind of turns my brain to jello in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think the confusion that's associated can be really, really thrilling about horror. And I think that whole thing about when you don't get to see the whole monster right away, your brain fills in the gaps and you're left to speculate is so true, I think, about some elements of cosmic horror, of this unknowable, confusing nature or things beyond our understanding. Things that happen whether we like it or not. I love those concepts because they're hard to wrap your brain around, and I think that's exactly why it interests me so much.
That's totally fair. I can absolutely get behind that. Building off of that, I would like to ask, what are some of your favorite movies?
God, I hate picking favorites.
If you had to choose, just a couple.
If I had to choose, I really, really loved the feeling I got watching The Witch.
Okay. Yeah,
and It Follows as well. That creeping dread feeling of It Follows, of this thing is coming for you and you cannot stop it. And I loved the way they accomplished it. Combined with the sound design, absolutely nuts. Like the beautiful soundtrack that was the It Follows soundtrack just really hit it home, because it felt like the same thing with it being very anachronistic, of like, it feels like an 80s slasher film, but it's not. And it's clearly modern, but it isn't also. What is happening in this film? Something is coming for me. What's going on? And you feel like you're helpless to watch the protagonists figure out how to beat this thing.
I thought about it being like very similar to 80s movies, but it wasn't like a conscious idea in my head.
Because I read an article a while back about that anachronistic nature of It Follows, in that it refuses to set a key time period.
Mm-hmm.
And that some of the things people do or the cars they drive are from the wrong time period, and things don't fit quite right, and that helps build that really unsettling nature of the film.
That's really interesting. I had never noticed that the cars are from the wrong period. I'm gonna have to watch that movie again.
I wonder if I can find that article again, because I don't know if it was the cars, but there are certain things that are not in the right time and that you can't really figure out exactly what time it's taking place.
I see. That's very interesting. Moving on to the next question. I often find with creative type folks, such as we, that the music that they like to bump changes with the seasons. What are you listening to nowadays during the refreshing kiss of summer?
What am I listening to? Let's see. It definitely changes with what I'm doing. I actually like to keep music. I like to build themed playlists based on what I'm working on. So I have a lot of stuff that is very surreal for when I'm working on STLDOCE, but just day to day, definitely listening to a lot of, I like a lot of the indie folk stuff. I've been just a lot of acoustic stuff. A lot of Hosier. I don't know how to pronounce his
Hoosier,
name.
yeah.
Yeah, Hosier. A lot of Mountain Goats. That's just been the vibe for the summer for me. But also at the same time, I've been listening to, I'm literally going to open my Spotify.
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
I like a lot of video game soundtracks. And so the one I've been obsessed with recently is the Outer Wilds soundtrack. If you haven't played that game, you should.
I will. Yes, that's on my list.
Pro tip, don't look up anything about the game before you play it. Do not.
I'm sorry, I've already done that. It was
Rip.
It was before. I had watched the Jacob Geller video specifically about the Outer Wilds. I mean, it didn't go very in depth with it, but I've already fucked myself in that regard. I don't know what the ending is, and I don't know what it's specifically about, but I did. I do
definitely
know
don't look up anymore.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Because the soundtrack rules. It's really nice, and there's a lot of really nice pieces in there, and a lot of recurring motifs as well.
Ooh, I do like my leitmotifs.
Yeah,
I do indeed. Any other video game soundtracks that you find yourself listening to?
Let me see. I'm gonna look back. So I've been listening to the Outer Wilds soundtrack. Falling back on the Last of Us soundtrack lately because of a lot of the acoustics, because it's so good. I agree. And I have, if you've ever listened to the soundtrack for Grease, Gris, that one is really nice. It's a gorgeous game, really, really lovely, artistic looking game. And the music is great as well.
Grease. I will have to put that on the list. I've not heard of that before.
It's gorgeous. It's a really stunning game visually.
Gotcha. I'll keep that in mind. So this is more of a personal question in the vein of video games. Moving on to video games, that was a nice segue. What about Myst 5 End of Ages grabbed you when you were a kid?
I think it was the cool looking kind of aesthetic of the game. It was like, I was like, what is going on with this game? I think it was the mystery aspect of it. I think I was gifted it by accident, not by accident, but without knowing anything that was going on. Like, I hadn't known there were other Myst games, but assumed there were some, considering it was Myst 5. But I think the constant mysteries of not having all the answers and getting the right things down in my little journal, I think that's what happened, and solving things with the tablets and moving and like trying to figure out what was going on was so interesting to me. And at the time I thought the graphics were really, really cool. Of course, now I'd look back and be like, what is happening to the specular shine of that one particular rock?
That's awesome. moving on from that onto frictional games specifically, because you've talked a lot about their games in the past, and Soma being a particular inspiration for the sound design, which, by the way, based as fuck. Have you had the time to play Amnesia Rebirth? And if so, what are your thoughts on it? No, you haven't. Okay.
I haven't. I have a long list of games and so little time.
Totally. Yeah, I feel you on that.
But yeah, Soma fucked me up.
Yeah, same for me, man. As a personal aside, I've been playing a lot of Death Stranding recently. A lot of Death Stranding. It's been like mostly that. Well, it's all okay. As a very personal aside, I'm playing it number one because I want to see the ending, and it's easily one of my favorite games. I haven't even finished it yet. But I've made a deal with my friends that when I finish it, I can play more Higurashi. So I'm trying to not really speed that along, but I wanna see the end of Death Stranding and then appreciate it as its full piece, and then finally finish Higurashi, because that has been a centerpiece in my life for a while now. If I know you said you have an extensive list, I am so sorry. But if you don't mind visual novels, I would highly recommend Higurashi.
Oh yeah, Higurashi. I never played the game, but I've seen enough playthroughs and saw them maybe a little too early. 7th grade is a bit early to be happening across Higurashi. So yeah, I happened across a lot of really fucked up anime in middle school.
Oh my god.
So
really?
That was a formative experience. Finding Umineko, finding Elfen Lied. Just like a lot of really screwed up stuff in middle school.
Not
It's like
no!
my tiny child brain.
Oh
so it's
my
like
god,
Higurashi is like, oh hey, there you are again. You screwed me up as a kid.
That is a really fucking early age to be looking into Higurashi. Holy crap, man.
It was entirely by accident. I'm looking for scary anime. Like this little kid, like, oh, what if I find horror anime? Because my current exposure to it is like this one romance anime. And it's like, oh no.
Holy crap. I am so sorry about that. Well, the games are quite different from the anime, so I would still recommend giving them a look. The first game is free, by the way. You can play it for free on Steam. I beat it in about. All right, I'm one more personal side, and then I'll move on. But I had played Higurashi. The first game, I had played it in a binge of 12 hours.
Wow.
I sat down with my friend Blader, and I did nothing but play that game all through the night for 12 hours, and I finished it that next morning. I don't regret that at all. I mean, it was hard. I mean, it was a very scarring experience. Don't get me wrong, as every Higurashi game is, but I did very much enjoy that. It was very fun.
Nice.
Moving on from that, you have talked extensively about Silent Hill.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think you've talked much about which Silent Hill game you prefer, if any of them.
I love the initial weirdness of Silent Hill 2, and to this day I will still be upset about PT because that was actually my first intro before I got into the other games, because to me it was the first thing that really scared me. Because I mean, I've seen enough stuff that I'm pretty good at predicting tropes or when a big jump scare is going to happen or things like that. And something about PT actually scared the shit out of me. Something about it, like I literally asked a friend in my dorm, hey, you want to come over and watch a playthrough of this game? Because it's so scary. Simultaneously, my dumbass put a can of soda in the freezer and it exploded out in the middle of our watch, which consequently we were both tense already and it scared the shit out of us. So maybe that's part of why the game was so scary.
Yeah.
But I think Silent Hill 2 is still my favorite.
That's still your favorite? What do you think of Silent Hill 3?
I like Silent Hill 3 too. I think Silent Hill 2 still is such a big kind of, I think it establishes kind of the big tropes, but I mean, Heather Mason birthing God is still a really rad concept to me.
I I think out of those two, Silent Hill 3 is my favorite. But Silent Hill 2, whenever I recommend Silent Hill to, I was talking about it with my father the other day. When I was talking about it with him, I had made the analogy that I don't really care who you are, you kind of have to play Silent Hill 2 because it is iconic.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. It's very iconic.
Yes. What did you think of Silent Hill 4?
I didn't play Silent Hill 4. I'm actually
okay.
largely unfamiliar with it outside of just the memes
Mm-hmm.
and some of the soundtrack parts, because I did listen to the soundtrack still.
Gotcha. Did you play Silent Hill 1?
No, I skipped it.
Yeah, I skipped it too.
I feel like 2 and 3 are really the best ones. At least in that they have the most cultural lasting.
Cultural impact, yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, do you have any other games that you are playing right now or that you're looking to play that you would recommend to people?
I'm in my needing to play a new game because I finished my last one and have not had time to. So, but I really want to know, I want to actually play Resident Evil Village and not just be watching from the sidelines and fangirling over all the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear so many good things about the way some of it's been designed. And I want to play that, but let's see, what have I been playing? What have I played? What was good that I played recently? I mean, the last game I played was Outer Wilds. I played The Sinking City, which was disappointing.
Really?
Just a classic case of maybe too large of a scope and not necessarily the time to do it. It's if a bird flies straight up while flapping its wings, that's just you didn't have time to work on the animation, and if it's glitching everywhere, it's just disappointing.
I see.
I think before that I have Ghost of Tsushima. I want to play that.
Ghost of Tsushima, yes.
And I've been meaning, I just need time. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
I've been eyeing this one game, World of Horror. It's kind of like a 1-bit style. It showed up on my Twitter feed a while back. I think it's an RPG, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
All I know is the art is fucked up, and I'm very interested.
Gotcha. It's always a good encourager.
Yeah.
For video games. Final question, media related, and then we'll move into the last larger question, and then we'll wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you'll start up a Patreon to fund any new projects you've got going on?
I think a Patreon, not so much. A Kickstarter, maybe. I say no to Patreon because of how limited my time is, and I definitely think that I would want to be able to promise a lot of extra stuff and want to be able to deliver to a Patreon audience, and I don't think I have the time right now to be able to deliver that. But totally. I think I am eyeing a potential Kickstarter for something. Okay.
I get behind that. Absolutely. I am going to throw money at that for sure. I wanted to know about a Patreon because I love your work, and I know other people love your work, and I want to be able to give you take my money and take it and use it so that you can, make these things and make your brain come onto a page or something like that. But a Kickstarter, that's equally fine. People keep an eye out for that. Alrighty. So, final question. you were creating a web series in the throes of your college career, and you've talked before about how difficult it was at the time juggling both Hi, I'm Mary Mary and college. Yet, despite this difficulty, you not only created a series that resonated with thousands of people, including myself, you also reached the ears of large internet names like Nightmind, Loey Lane, Inside of Mind, and most prominently Film Theory. Thack was the king of getting all your shit together and making something out of it, and you have become the queen of getting all your shit together and making it work with a camera, a program or two, some bodies to help on occasion, and an idea. What would you say to creators like you who have much the same scenario on their hands, and how would you recommend they get started with their brain baby?
Let me think. I think the first thing to do is be comfortable with sitting and developing it for a bit. And if it doesn't want to leave your mind, then it's the one for you. Hi, I'm Mary Mary as a concept kept nagging at me while I was at college. I think if you want, again, I think the planning thing that I mentioned before is key, but also that let that passion inform your work. Let that passion for the project inform your work. And sometimes you might be like, oh God, I can't keep working on this right now. I'm so busy. I think understand that you're not getting paid. Like you can do this on your own time, but let that passion inform your work at all times, I think. And make sure that it's something that you're jazzed about. And because one of the things I would do is if like I said, if a project doesn't leave your mind, then it's something you're excited about. STLDOCE continues to bother me even as I am still working on it. It's like, hey, have you done something new yet? And I'm like, oh my God, I am balancing work and online school. Please give me a moment. But I think if it's something that you get excited about, do everything you can to plan ahead and make sure make sure it's something that really excites you and fuels you to do. Because I think that will show through.
That's awesome. I agree. Alrighty. That's about it. Is there anything else you want to say to the audience? Anything that you want to plug? Anything along those lines before we go?
Well, you guys rock. I always appreciate the audience. And I am still floating around on my behind the scenes channel, making behind the scenes videos. I have another one that I probably should just drop soon just because I have it. But yeah, I will be over there until I start making a new thing while I eventually crawl out of the script writing hole that I'm in. But yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you all very much for tuning in. I would like to say thank you to Kay for coming on to the show, and thank you for creating an incredible series and an incredible short film. Check both of those out if you haven't already. Whatever platform you're watching on, Anchor, YouTube, Spotify, etc., make sure you're following the channel, specifically YouTube, where I upload the vast majority of my content, all Authorman, all the time. Make sure to follow me on all associated platforms for regular updates on what's coming up next. If you ever want to request a guest, a specific topic, or want to ask a question, shoot me an email at ag3ntidaho@gmail.com, ag3ntidaho@gmail.com, agentidaho@gmail.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Remember to look behind you, and take care.